Hello fellow Tarnished, Crossbloom here, and in today's video I'm going to be providing you with some useful tips and tricks, as well as a quick beginner guide to set your Wretch class up to easily brace the lands between, and hopefully make the early game a breeze for even the newest of players on what is considered one of the more difficult classes to start with. While the Wretch class does have a reputation for being significantly more difficult than the other starting classes, by the end of this video you'll see that it is only marginally more difficult, incredibly rewarding to play, and comes with a plethora of benefits right out of the box. So without further delay, let's begin. The first should come to no surprise, but if this is your first time playing, you'll find the Wretch class all the way at the end of the character class selection. The first thing you'll notice with the Wretch class is that this class comes equipped with no armor, and only a club as a weapon. At first this may seem daunting, but the club comes with some surprisingly decent damage, high poise, meaning that you're less likely to be staggered if an enemy attacks you as you're attacking, as well as a much higher chance to stagger enemies, allowing you to land that oh so beautiful critical hit. Along with this, you will see one of the most beneficial reasons for starting with the Wretch class. The class comes with 10s across the board in attributes and begins at level 1, meaning that you will be able to allocate points wherever you see fit without any drawbacks in other stats, as well as that low starting level reducing the cost of those initial first levels. This makes the Wretch especially useful if you plan on respecking and trying out some different builds. You'll begin the game in a small church at the Chapel of Anticipation. Be sure to grab the items off the deceased maiden, as you'll need them to get through the giant door. Follow the path down, and you'll be met with a grafted scion. You can attempt to fight this boss, but it is a very difficult fight, so don't worry if you die, as it is a scripted death. Upon waking up, you'll be met with a path leading up to another large door. However, we're going to want to drop down into the cave below for some useful runes that we will use for some early levels, as well as a tutorial if you are new to the game. This cave/dungeon is fairly linear, so just follow the path until you're met with the boss. Don't worry, the boss is incredibly easy, as you'll see. Be sure to abuse your amazing jump heavy combo by pressing the jump button followed by the heavy attack button on your controller, which by default is going to be the right trigger on both Xbox and PlayStation controllers. Doing this will often stagger your enemies, allowing you to critically hit them, if not after a couple of hits. After defeating the boss, which again is quite easy, as long as you utilize your jump heavies, follow the path out to the main game world, making sure to touch any graces you come across along the way. First, you'll want to beeline to the Church of Ele, just north of the first site of grace, making sure to avoid the tree sentinel. Be sure to touch this grace as well, as you will have needed to touch at least 3 sites of grace before your maiden Melina will appear. Make your way up the path to the north, making sure to take out the Godric soldiers along the way. Not only will they provide you with souls, which we will need for the next part of this guide, but they also have a chance of dropping pieces of the Godric soldier set, which is an amazing early game armor set due in part to its all-around good stats and resistances. Upon reaching the edge of the forest, with the camp in the distance, follow the path along the left-hand side to reach another site of grace just outside the walls. This is an important step, as it will allow us to spend some of our runes to level up, as well as receive our spectral steed Torrent.
Traveler from beyond the fog, I am Melina. Now the order of the next steps is not entirely critical, but we will want to get the Uchigatana, which is an extremely powerful early game weapon that the Samurai class begins with. This weapon has fairly high damage along with a powerful weapon art useful for staggering enemies, but most importantly, the weapon features the blood loss ability, which causes the weapon to do an extreme burst of damage after a series of consecutive hits are executed on the target. This is great for chunking down bosses, and combined with its quick attack speed, you will be able to get in and out of boss openings without taking much, if any, damage. The reason I recommend this as a starting weapon for the Wretch is due in part to its ability to easily be acquired as soon as you start the game, along with the fact that it has very low stat requirements to wield, at only 15 dexterity and 12 strength. To get this weapon, we're going to be headed towards the Death Touch Catacombs, which are just northeast of the Stormhill Shack in Stormhill. To get here, we're going to need to sprint past the giant that drops down and the Godric soldiers that are blocking the way. They are pretty trivial to get past, as the wooden barricades blocking the path can be easily smashed with Torrent. Just be sure you're running into the right ones. Follow the path up and to the right until you reach the Stormhill Shack. Be sure to speak to Roderica, who will be sitting inside the shack by the door, until you have exhausted all of her dialogue. You will know when you have done so once she begins to repeat the same line of dialogue. If you do this, you'll receive a Spirit Ash summon, and she will later be transported to the Round Table Hold. This is important as she is used later in the game to upgrade those spirit summons. From here, head northeast until you reach the location indicated on the map. This is the Death Touch Catacombs, where we will be getting the Uchigatana. This area is filled with pretty dangerous enemies, so be sure to avoid any attack at all costs. To get to the Uchigatana, just follow the path I take through the dungeon, being sure to pull the lever so that we can come back and fight the boss later. Once we have the Uchigatana, we're going to need to hit the attribute requirements for this weapon. Thankfully, the requirements are not too high and only require a few more levels, depending on where you are at this point. Depending on how comfortable you are, there are a couple of relatively quick methods for farming enough souls to wield the Uchigatana. I decided to take out the boss at the Groveside Cave, as even if you are a newer player playing the Wretch class for the first time, our high movement speed and stagger potential make the boss trivial. Another option is to farm the giants which can be found at the top of Stormhill. These will be a bit trickier, but since you'll be fighting them on Torrent, it should be fairly easy to dodge their attacks. Killing one of these will net you 1,000 souls, and there are about 5 in the area. Finally, you can farm the Godric soldier camp just outside the site of grace we met Melina at. While this is a slower method, it tends to be a bit safer, as if you die you will respawn fairly close to your roots. Once we've allocated our points into 15 dexterity and 12 strength, you're now ready to wield the Uchigatana. You should immediately see how much stronger this weapon is to the club in terms of raw damage per second. You can increase this by heading back to the Church of Ele and upgrading the sword at the Smithing Stone, which I would highly recommend doing, not just for the damage, but for the Rani encounter. She will provide you with the Spirit Calling Bell, which you can use to summon any spirit ashes you gather. As always, be sure to talk to any NPCs until all of their dialogue options are exhausted, as doing so will often reward you with items or quests. At this point, you will be free to explore the world and take out some bosses. The Uchigatana and Godric Soldier set should carry you through most of the early game. Another parting tip I can leave you with is to head to the Limgrave Tunnels, where you will find a plethora of smithing stones to upgrade your Uchigatana fairly high for your current place in the game. Feel free to explore the rest of Limgrave and the Weeping Peninsula to gather enough runes and levels to take on the first boss. If you're ever lost or are having trouble finding dungeons, be sure to check out the wiki or interactive Elden Ring map at mapgenie.io/Elden Ring. And with that, enjoy your powerful starting build with one of the most rewarding classes in the Lands Between. If you have any questions, be sure to leave them in the comments below. Thank you all for watching.